take two. For today's cup of coffee, we're going to be discussing something that many people, well, hopefully within our audience, these folks know who this gentleman was. If not, ask your parents, grandparents, go online, do a Google search.
When did we get to the part where you...
I will beat your ass. That was what threw me off on the first take. He does this to me. You all just don't know. Anyhow, we're going to be talking about James Dean.
Pardon.
And he definitely just
Ultimate
incredible.
bad boy.
He was the ultimate bad boy. He truly was. And this article comes from SFGate, which I'm assuming is the San Francisco Gate, and was written by Andrew Pridgen. And that was written originally February the 12th, 2022, and updated February the 14th, 2022. And the article is entitled A California Highway, a Horrific Crash, and Why a Cursed Car Part Sold for $382,000.
That's a lot of money that I could do a lot with.
Sure.
Buy a good house around here with that.
And so we've got, two articles to share, snippets thereof, and links will be in the description box. And Mr. Pridgen is very much, his writing style is similar to Brent Swancer, which very good writers, but they, it's easier to do the flowery stuff when you're reading it. Not so good to do that when you're trying to read it out loud. To read it.
It's meant to be read in silence.
Yes.
You don't open your mouth when reading it.
I was doing one of those William Shatner overly dramatic pauses. Okay. So I'm trying to, branch out.
What? Never.
Anyhow, Mr. Pridgen starts.
That before.
In one of the last pictures taken before his death in 1955, James Dean gives the camera a thumbs up and a grin from the driver's seat of his Porsche 550 Spider.
Lil Bastard.
And Dean had only owned the car for a few days, and he decided to drive it up Route 466 en route to Salinas, traveling to a race after being banned from the sport by his studio for months. The car could hit 140 on a straightaway and sat low to the ground. When it was built, the car was one of the fastest in the world, often winning races against much bigger-engined, heavier offerings from Mercedes, Lotus, Ferrari, and Jaguar, earning it the nickname the Giant Killer.
Lil Bastard. But
550s were too good-looking and too temperamental, and when they crashed, which they often did, their aluminum bodies would crumple up like candy wrappers. Only a handful of the 90 cars built remain intact today. And even pieces are worth a fortune, especially if they're plausibly from Dean's ill-fated car, which he nicknamed Lil Bastard.
Lil Bastard. Little bastard. Not a little bastard. Just a little bastard.
And in 2021, someone bought the Transaxle Axle at auction.
Axle, can you scream that a little louder?
For $382,000. It was the amount of money that somebody paid for a Transaxle. Axle.
For a axle.
Transaxle. It's like those Shires. The Shires mess me up. The Transaxle messes me up. I don't know why.
Worcestershire sauce.
Worcestershire sauce. Oh, God, don't get me on that. It says, for decades, some people who owned pieces of Dean's car have maintained that it's cursed, killing and maiming people who come near it. That includes an amateur racer who died while racing a Spider with spare parts salvaged from Lil Bastard. Is it really a curse? Or the inevitable outcome of one of the most dangerous cars ever built? And former racer and auto historian Bob Devlin told the author, quote, "You couldn't pay me to get behind the wheel of one. I'm old for a good reason," end quote.
I'm going to name my car Little Shit. Little shit.
Hey, I had a station wagon thing one time. It was a Ford. I called it the space shuttle. For real. That was the one that the timing chain broke on it while I was going to clinicals one morning. That was rough.
Oh, no.
Dean made just 3 movies in his life, 2 released posthumously, but he immediately became an icon. Everyone from Robert Redford to Leonardo DiCaprio has cribbed his brooding method acting and swagger. In September of 1955, Dean decided to drive his brand new Spider up to Salinas for a race instead of trucking it there. All right. This is a 2-lane stretch of road which connects the Central Coast to Interstate 5. It's a dangerous spot with lots of traffic and no lane to pass. The shoulder is a narrow patch of gravel, then dirt, then a ditch bordered by barbed wire.
Oh, shit.
In the early mornings...
Spiky boys.
Oh, yeah. And late afternoons, the sun hits directly at eye level. And on summer days, the road shimmers.
Nice.
So you get those nice optical illusions that are not fun to drive in. Mm-hmm. And Devlin had stated, quote, Dean shouldn't have been driving on that road. Not at that time of day, not in that car. It was not a normal thing to do to drive the car up from L.A. like that. But with the shortage of time before getting up there, they wanted to give him some miles on the car, get it a run in, get him used to it. Because he was getting ready to go race. Mm-hmm. Because, And having been banned from the auto racing by Warner Brothers during the filming of Giant, his 3rd and final film, Dean was grounded from June through mid-September of 1955. He acquired the car as soon as the embargo was lifted. Having not had a chance to race it, much less drive the Roadster, Dean and his small crew decided to get some seat time behind the wheel on the way to the racing grounds at the Salinas Airport. Dean was speeding up the highway with his mechanic, Rolf Witheridge. Yes, in the passenger seat. At the same time, Donald, honestly, this is his name, Turnip Seed. Turnip Seed. Turnupseed. Turnip Seed. A 23-year-old Navy veteran and Cal Poly student was headed east on Route 466, just west of the junction of Highways 46 and 41. He was headed to his Central Valley home after a week of classes. At 5:45 p.m., Turnip Seed took a left directly into Dean's path. The actor tried to slide onto the shoulder, but couldn't make the turn. The Spider slammed head-on into Turnip Seed's car, a Ford sedan that weighed literally twice as much.
Oh, my God.
There was still much debate around whether Turnip Seed or Dean was to blame, particularly since the Spider sat so low, it might have been impossible to see. It sat just 39 inches off the ground.
Bruh.
Yeah. You talk about riding in something feel like your ass is dragging the road. There you go. It says James Dean's biographer and Porsche historian Lee Raskin he's made quotes through here. So if you hear me refer to Raskin, that's who it is. And at the accident scene, eyewitness John Robert White told the California Highway Patrol officer Arnie Trippick that he saw the Spider bounce off the Ford and cartwheel twice before coming to rest in a ditch on the shoulder of the road. Dean's mechanic was thrown from the car and survived, sustaining several major injuries, including a double fracture in his jaw and serious hip and femur damage. When paramedics came, it took a long time to untangle Dean's body from the wreck. And when you go and you look at the wreckage of this, it's just...
horrific.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you wince. You just wince. It says a coroner's report listed a snapped neck, 2 broken arms, and a fractured skull, among other injuries.
Oh, my God.
Soon after Dean's fatal crash, Dr. William F. Esrich, an amateur racer who had competed against Dean 3 times in 1955, tracked Dean's totaled Spider down and bought the car's engine and transmission and other steel working parts from a wrecking yard in Burbank. Esrich kept the motor and sold the transaxle and other minor parts to one of his friends, another LA-based doctor and racer named Troy McHenry, Raskin says. See, that's where Raskin came in on that.
Yeah.
Quote, Troy had a 550 as well, and he found a way to take 200 pounds off it, replacing the steel and aluminum with fiberglass. At that point, the car was real loosey-goosey, end quote. 1950s slang terms. Kid is looking at me funny, but it's 1950s slang terms. Now, McHenry lost control of his steering and crashed into a tree and died at the scene. Now remember that, because then we'll get to article number 2. It says that Porsche still makes a Spider, the 718. The 2021 model weighs just over 3,200 pounds, 2,000 pounds more than Dean's. So I'd say a strong wind would have blown that thing off the road anyhow.
Yeah.
After McHenry's death, the racer's wife sold his cars and extra parts to various racers and collectors around the country. And the transaxle had gone to Jim Barrington. And so in the early 1990s, Barrington sold the part to collector Jack Stiles, and he mounted and stored the transaxle in a crate. It says Ark of the Covenant style, so I guess he took really special care of it for the next 30 years. And on May 21st, 2021, it sold for $382,000.
Oh my God.
By the end of the auction, 3 competing bidders emerged, one of whom was Zak Bagans.
Yeah, Ghost Adventures, man. He's got this whole ass fucking haunted museum of shit.
Exactly. And he was the one that did win the bidding. So, I was trying to see who this quote is. It says, when it comes to mysterious haunted items, cursed items, nothing takes the cake more than Lil Bastard. Bagans, he was the one that had said that.
Yeah.
Wonder if he's kin to Bilbo. And Bagans, who's also a car collector, says he believes that Dean's Spider is 2 things: a car that should have never been on the road, and a piece of machinery that has a fascinating history that you can't deny. And Bagans isn't the first to sell tickets to see a piece of Lil Bastard. That honor goes to George Barris, Hollywood car designer of the Munsters hearse and the original Batmobile.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And Barris toured the U.S. in the late 1950s with what he claimed was the refurbished body of Dean's Spider and spread the legend of the curse everywhere he went. Raskin says, quote, it wasn't the same car, it was a shell. And, end quote, he says Barris pieced both the car and the legend together from spare parts.
I mean...
So nobody knows for sure. Nobody knows for sure. And then the second article is by John Puckett, October the 27th, 2021, and is from a website called Motorious, which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah.
Motorious. And this article is The Curse of Lil Bastard, Fact, Fiction, or Horrible Coincidence. And I'm just going to go back and briefly touch on what we'd already said.
Yes.
After the accident, the car was declared a total loss and made its way to a salvage yard. And then William Esrich purchased the entire car for parts. The engine was put into a Lotus 4. It's either 4 or 9. It's a 4, I think. And it's the Roman numerals. And some suspension parts were sold to Troy Lee McHenry for use in his Porsche race car. Both men crashed in the very same race and almost 11 months after Dean's death. And then you had Troy Lee McHenry's Porsche hit the only tree on the racetrack in the very first lap of the 1956 Panama sports car races.
Shit.
See, this was details that was not in the other article.
Yeah.
It says also the remaining parts of the car, which were basically 4 wheels, A mangled body and a twisted frame were sold to George Barris, who sold 2 tires from the car and loaned the body to the Los Angeles chapter of the National Safety Council as a traveling display. Now, before we get into this, if you look at the wreckage of this car, as far as selling wheels, well, I guess it
How
was
much
wheels
blood
and
is still on it?
instead of tires, because the tires were absolutely shot.
How much blood was on that car
I'd say
from the wreck?
Well, I'd say quite a bit.
How much is still on it?
I don't know. The tires that Barris sold reportedly blew at the same time. Well, the tires, like I said, if it was the wheels, which is the metal part, you could have sold those. But as far as the actual tire, those things were shot. So that makes me question this. Go look at the photograph. It's supposedly that they blew at the same time, causing another accident, and the body fell from its display on multiple occasions. One time injuring a bystander, and the other killing George Barkas, a truck driver hired to transport the car to a road safety expo. It says also, while in storage, the car caught on fire for an unknown reason in 1960, and then while being transported from Miami to Los Angeles, the car mysteriously disappeared, never to be seen again. I guess that was the body of it.
Yeah.
And it says there again that the one part that was remained to be confirmed from Dean's car was that damned transaxle. So
Spooky.
I mean,
that is a fascinating, legend.
It is. And I had heard that before, as far as the remains were cursed. And it's like anything else. I mean, somebody died in a horrific way, so it would stand to reason that the bits and pieces would be cursed.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I've always wondered if...
It's just like houses. If people
Sure.
die tragically in some way, shape, or form, that energy is going to be soaked.
Right.
The house is going to be like a sponge.
Right. And if you ever read Stephen King's book, Christine, I've wondered before. I mean, you could almost see remnants of how, the legend of Lil Bastard could have been embedded in the car, Christine.
It had to be.
Wonderful book. I mean, if you've never read that before.
The movie was okay.
And the movie wasn't. No, the book is tremendous. It's one of those that you just lose yourself. You become part of that world, which is why books is better than the movies.
Yes.
So, but that was really good. And as far as these haunted items and people wanting to purchase pieces of tragedy, I do not understand that. I don't. And I've seen that happen. Not that somebody purchased it, but that's just like when the plane crashed outside of our dorm while I was at ETSU. And now that was some trauma, because, my God, when we looked out, all you could see was the burning outline of the plane. It was like a little Cessna, it was like a private plane type thing. And to know that these people had died, and there was nothing that anybody could do. Nothing. And so those of us that outside the dorm, I know that thing was maybe 300 to 500 yards away from us. It could have very easily flown into our dorm, which would have been horrible.
If it was just the frame of it, like I'm thinking...
It was the outline.
Of outline.
Yeah.
For some reason, I just thought of like all the charred bodies just flying out and landing in people's yards.
No. It was for any of us who witnessed it, it was a totally traumatic event.
I know it was. I'm trying to make light of the situation.
There was no light to be made of that at that point. Somebody's people died. But I had to go to, I don't know, one of the school offices the next day, and still kind of traumatized. And in walks this girl, and she's just all giddy. and talking to somebody about how that she and some of the other ones had picked up pieces of the wreckage. And first of all, that's illegal.
Yeah.
Because you've got to have all those bits and pieces to determine why the plane crashed. And that I was sitting there and was getting angry. And when I start getting angry, everybody can see it on my face. I don't conceal that well. And that the lady that I was speaking with looked over at the girl and simply told her she saw it, which meant shut up. And the girl did. But I thought how callous that was, that somebody would dare be gleeful that they had purchased or, taken a piece of anything with that kind of tragedy and story behind it. So for me, it's the same thing. I can understand them wanting the transaxle or whatever, but I can
understand purchasing it for historic purposes.
Right. Well, I'm sure that's what Bagans will do. He will probably put it in the haunted, museum, and he's probably the best one that could have ever purchased it.
Mm-hmm. He's got a huge museum. I think you can still go visit it or something.
Well, I'm sure that he would allow you to go through for a nominal fee, and there's nothing wrong with that.
You do have to pay to go in there.
There's nothing wrong with him charging admission. Depending on how much the admission is.
Especially since, some of the objects are dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, like I said, he would do better, collecting and housing those things. Didn't the Warrens, for a while, didn't they have some things that they had collected so other people...
It was in the basement.
Couldn't... Why in the hell would you want something like that in the basement?
It was a huge collection, and I don't know what happened to that collection now. But those were all cursed and very haunted objects.
Why would you put that in the basement of your house?
Who is in the... Whose hands is Annabelle in?
I don't know. I thought Zak Bagans had that one too.
No, he did. I don't think he did. I don't think he could purchase her.
I don't know. We need to find a story of his inventory of what he has and stuff. I don't watch the show. I have seen him on things before. I think he's another one that, to a degree, does not understand what he's dealing with, that he will call out some of these spirits and stuff. And I'm thinking, you're a fool. He may be wealthy, but that's still foolish.
I mean, he knows and he's had the eye damage because of one of the ghosts and such like that. He still does it. He still does it anyway, even though he got harmed many times.
And he has not been harmed enough yet for him to learn better. But honestly, rather than somebody else having the piece of history, if you want to call it that, but James Dean is sort of in that category of Marilyn Monroe, because these people died at a young age and that they have become timeless. I think that Dean was the one that said, live fast, die young, and make a better looking corpse that way. Well, he did the first two, but when you're that mangled, I don't think that...
Nothing would help with that.
No.
That's a closed casket.
That was very much a closed casket. But there was just something about him. There are certain... I know that one photograph where he's got the leather jacket on and the white T-shirt, and it's like got one of the boots against the wall with a cigarette, and that look. That was the shit. It still is. So
pretty cool stuff.
It was cool in a lot of ways, but
it's tragic.
It could have been avoided. It could have been avoided.
Yeah.
I need to go and look at his chart and see if he was an Aries. For real. That would explain a lot.
Okay.
Don't buy haunted shit. If you've got $300,000, we can start a Patreon.
The day that I get my own place or whatever, I'm gonna get some haunted objects. As long as I know that they are not hostile in any way.
Well, good for you. I will wave to you from the road. Because I've got better sense.
You'll come into the house and I'll show you the shelves.
Oh, no.
The shelves of haunted dolls.
Because, like I said, I've got better sense to go in places like that. Yeah. So, that's true of flea markets, antique stores, any of that stuff. Because people don't know what they've got in those collections either a lot of times. It's interesting to go through with some of those places with me.
To the flea market. I want to go to the flea market.
Anyhow, not today. Not today. The day is done. So.
How dare.
If you've had experiences with the paranormal, supernatural, encounters with UFOs, aliens, cryptids, if you have any legends about James Dean's car, any of that stuff, even Marilyn Monroe, I had actually looked at some of I think it was the FBI documents that they had released for you. So we might discuss that and the government tracking her one day. If you've got local, regional, family, myths, legends, send us an email, cupofcoffeewithscream@gmail.com. The email address is always in the description box, so you don't have to just try to remember that blanket.
There are people that buy some of Marilyn Monroe's stuff.
Yeah.
Still. There's this one, and she does it for display purposes too, like because she has a shop or whatever,
right?
And it's display in history, whatever. Be like, this was Marilyn's. Anyway, she has quite a few things of Marilyn's,
right? And
she's not disrespectful with it either. She loves the history and she loves Marilyn,
right?
So I think if you're doing that. That's respectful.
The respectful, and that's what it is on any of this stuff. So,
yeah,
I think it'd be cooler to have his leather coat, the one he wore in the movies. I don't know what he was wearing when he wrecked. I wouldn't want anything that he had when he was wrecked.
Yeah. If you like this video, don't forget to like, share, comment, and most of all, subscribe and click that little notification button for daily notifications of our daily uploads. Thank you all. Have a good. Don't get cursed.
Know that you're appreciated and loved for having coffee with us. And if nobody's told you today that they give a damn that you're on the planet, we do.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you need someone to listen to you or have prayer requests, then go ahead and use that same email address. We'll get back in touch with you.
Yes.
You all have a beautiful, blessed day, and we'll see you on the next cup.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh!